Hello and welcome to part 2 of our Tyrrell P34 build. And this is where we get straight into the assembly. Part 1 was basically going through the box, setting all up, getting our work areas set up, labeling all the sprues, and yeah, just getting set to go. So there's a few good tips in part 1 if you haven't seen it. So check out the playlist and suggest you go watch that first. All right, so we're on to step 1. I'll put the instructions up in the corner here to have a quick look at. And step 1, where it's called attaching the chassis parts. Okay, so most of these parts are on the D sprue. So I just look through it all. And here is our D sprue here. So we'll get most of them off here. There's also a few on the K sprue, which looks like the steering arm, which would be this one here. And then there's a couple more I found on the L sprue. Somewhere I saw them there. There's a couple bits on there. So that should be all we need for completing step 1. Okay, so we'll start off with that steering arm. We've got to work out. It goes into the front, down into the front of the chassis. Now the chassis there we need to paint, because we're straight up, we're going to be putting stuff down into that, and that has to be painted in aluminium. All right, but first we'll put this part together, and I'll get the parts off the sprue. I'll clean them up. I'll just quickly show you how I clean them up, because I want to get them looking really nice and take off any seam lines and so forth that might be on them. Okay, so I'll get them off, the pieces off the sprue, and then we'll have a look at the cleanup process we go through. All right, I'll be back shortly. Okay, so I thought I'd just show you. It's very hard to see how small it is, but there's a seam line. When this is mounted in, it's going to sit in this way. It'll run through there like that. You can see a seam line go along the edges there. I've just sanded that off, and the same with on the top of this here. This one I've sanded, this one I haven't, and I'm using these Icky Sticky little nano files. Fantastic. One advantage of these is you can actually see through them, so you can see as it disappears. I've taken that one off there. This one has got a line on there, and it's just a matter of just a light rub, and you can just see it disappear as you're watching it through the file. And there we go. That's done. All right. So there we go. There. Done. Okay, I also did the seam lines along there where they would show through. Yeah. Okay. Done. Now the same with these parts. Wherever you're cutting off the pieces from the sprue and you get your little nubs there, you come back and do it as close as you can like that, and then there's usually always going to be a little bit left there. Again, with one of these files, just lightly go over it, and it takes it off. There's no sign of anything ever being there. Brilliant. Okay, I'll clean up the rest of these parts, and we'll come back. You just got to be careful when connecting these. This will have to paint, so this will be done in a gloss black. That's the only part in all of this step that I can see that needs to be gloss black. So that'll be, so I'll do that. XF16 is the aluminium, which we're going to use the Outlaw Paints aluminium, and that's what color these will be, and quite a few other parts on here as well. So I most likely will take off other parts that need to be sprayed aluminium, so I can do it all in one go. Probably a bit easier that way. And yeah, All right, so I shall return. We're back in a sec. Okay, so here we go. The part's all ready to spray. I'm just using toothpicks or cocktail sticks just to put through the hole there to hold them while I spray them. I've used a bit of blue tack on here, and the pieces are sitting down on the spots that will actually attach to the floor plan. So it doesn't matter if the undersides aren't painted, because that's where the glue will go. So that's fine. And this control arm here, I've just taped up the center, because I don't want to get paint on there, because that's where the gear rolls between the two, and it's all inside there. You won't see it anywhere. Anyway, you'll only see the black on the end here. All right. So I'll go and paint these up and be back in a second. Welcome back, guys. I just want to quickly show you. I'm trying to decide which aluminium to use. We've got a choice of the military colors aluminium, Outlaw Paints, or a white aluminium by Outlaw Paints. So the top half of the sprue is done in the aluminium military color, and this one's the white aluminium. And I'm sort of leaning towards the white aluminium. Just seems just a slightly bit more shine. Sorry about the bit of dust got on there. I wasn't too concerned with the spoon. Got some masking tape in between. I'll just take that off. And that is the grey primer. You can see the difference there. But I'm just looking at the two, and I think I'm going to go with the white aluminium. I think that's going to look much better on the Formula One car. There's barely anything difference in it at all. If you turn it the other way, it's nothing really to do with the lighting, I think. Just like that bottom one a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to go with white aluminium for the Outlaw Paints, for all the aluminium parts. Okay, I'll get back to painting. I'll be back in a sec. Okay, so when those parts dry, I need to put these into this. Okay, now what I want to make sure before I paint this is that this is all cleaned up and right to go. And there's quite a few sort of rough edges on here, and just some corners that need tidying up. So what I'm doing is I'm just test fitting. This will go on the bottom like this, and I just put it that way, and just seeing how that fits and sits on there, and it all seems okay. Looks pretty good. All right. We'll see after. I'm just going to go along and just make sure everything is perfectly smooth and flat. And also for in the top here, because I want to make sure it fits also, is this part here, which is going to sit in here. And I need to make sure that that's a nice fit as well. So I'll take this off the sprue, clean it up, and sit it there, and just make sure everything's sitting down properly. And there may be just a little bit of sanding and filing to do, just so we got no gaps and it's all nice and neat. Because this we need to spray before we can attach these, which I'm about to put together soon. They'll be dry shortly. Okay, be back again in a minute. Right, so I've just done a test fit, putting this part of the panel on, and it fits absolutely fine. The important thing is just to make sure that they're pushed in. There's some pins that go through the holes here, front and at the back. Make sure they're pushed right in. One was a little bit harder than the other to get in, and sits beautiful flush against there. That's the main concern along there. Everything else spot on. So yeah, that's good. You can see how tight that is. That's okay. And so I'll just clean this up now, sand it, tidy it up a little bit, and then paint this in the same silver that I've chosen. All right, I shall be back when we'll put these together. Okay, I'll put them together, and we'll see how they look. Right. Cheers. One more thing I wanted to show you, the cockpit. Okay, so it's going to sit in there like that. So basically the whole top section here, including in here, we don't need to paint, because that's all going to be covered by this. Now there's a gap in the back here, which I don't know if that will be seen or not. There's some rivet detail on there, so I'll paint that anyway, just to be sure. Tops of here don't need to paint, although the ends here do stick out. So they probably need painting, I should say. So it's pretty much all the sides, and then at the back, not too sure about here, but definitely inside these parts, I think I'll paint. Hard to tell if anything is going to cover that or not. It's probably, if you don't know for sure, then paint it. Everything underneath doesn't need any paint, so we don't have to worry about that. It won't be seen. All right, I'll get onto this and paint back soon. Okay, just added the front steering rack in. You turn the little black, it'll slide, so you'll be able to turn the front wheels. That's all done. Make sure you put those corners in. You want to super glue them in because you don't want any of that coming loose. I just put some glue in underneath there and touched on where they go through, and that's fine. There's a couple of clamps that go over the top, extra secure, so that's all good. There's a fire extinguisher, D34, that needs to be done. I've just got that primed. I'm going to paint that red and then do the chrome for the nozzle. And there's a decal here for it as well, number 9. And this is a clamp, like a clamp that goes over. It'll sit down in here, and then that'll slide down, hold it in place. In the meantime, I'm going to take off the accelerator, brake and clutch pieces, and there's also photo etch to go on the front of each one of those as well. All right, we'll be back in a sec. Now I'm just taking off the photo etch here, and what I do is I have a solid tile. I need a nice hard surface. I need to take these 3 pieces off to go on the pedals. So what you do is, because you're up against a hard surface, you get a nice clean blade and just whip it across. 1, 2. Okay, and that should come off. So there's one piece. I'm thinking I might try and cut those off, and then I can sand them, because that was quite let me get some clippers. I'll be back in a second. Okay, I don't want to use my good ones I use on plastic. So let's try this. A matter of getting in there and clipping it. 1, 2. Almost came off. There it is. That one's come off there. Yeah, it's like solid steel, these things are. So 1 off and 2. There we go. Got that. Push it back in here where it's safe. Not that it's going to bend easily. Most of, if not all of this, none of this has to be bent, although I do see some pieces there that may have to, but they've got perforation through there to help with that. When we get to that, I'll show you a bending tool that I use as well. Okay, so these need to be glued onto the brake clutch and accelerator pedals. There they are there. So I'll just sand them and get those nubs off so that they're nice and smooth. And then I don't know whether I should glue them on and then paint these. These are done chrome, or leave them with that reflective finish and put them on there. Yeah, not sure. Anyway, I'll figure that out. I'll be back soon. Okay, so I'm going to put the photo etch on first, and then I'll paint them in the chrome. But I'm just going to try this first, which is some Icky Sticky Clear Flexi CA glue. This is especially for photo etch. First time I've tried it, so yeah, I'll see how it goes with these parts. You can get these also. These are little extenders for applying small amounts, you just connect that to the top of the bottle and you can put little spots where you need. All right, so I'll give this a go, and once again, if you want to try this, description links down for ickysticky.com down in the description. All right, I'll glue these on and we'll see how they look. Be back in a sec. Okay, there they are, glued on, no problem. Just be aware it does set quite quick, so place them as exactly where you want them. I used a wax pencil to just pick up and just place them exactly where I want. Very handy tool to have as well, particularly for small parts. But I'm going to go paint these in the chrome that they're supposed to be, and then I'll do the fire extinguisher as well. We'll come back and have a look at them when they're done. Okay, back in a sec. Okay, back again, and I've got the pedals in. We've got our brake, clutch, and accelerator in there. Went in no problem at all. We've got our photo etch on the front, so it's a nice little touch to it. You'll also notice our fire extinguisher is in there. Now, this is one that's not something the driver's going to grab, but it's sort of encased in, so there's got this panel here that locks it in. So it's in there. So what's happened is there's a little tube that's not there on the top. I've actually cut a bit of tubing so that it runs into the side of the panel there. You probably just make it out just down in there. Just a bit of an extra bit of detail. Otherwise, it's just sitting there and it's not connected to anything, and it has all these connections on the top of it. So I'm about to glue that in. I haven't glued it in properly yet. Just been waiting for that decal to dry 100% before I put it in, but it looks good. The next thing, that finishes step 1. Then we'll go straight on to step 2, where we put the lower chassis on, which I've already prepped up, and I've glued this plate here that goes onto it. So that's dry now. So that's all done. And this will go on the underside of this when I finish. But of course, this needs to be primed and painted also in the aluminium. Okay, so I shall go ahead and do that. There's also a couple of little black parts there that go on each side that don't get glued in. So a point to remember there. You'll see that up there. I'll put step 2 up there. You can have a quick look. Yeah, there's each side L4. Those pieces are going to go in. Okay, so I'll get this finished up and we'll be back in a sec. Okay, welcome back everybody. So I'm up to putting the lower chassis onto the chassis. Okay, it's very glary, but we've got that all silver painted, come up really nice, or aluminium. So there's connection points here, 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 and here. So I'm going to clamp it down and make sure it's all glued in quite securely. There's those little rubber ones there that are sitting in there, because when you turn it over, the outside panels are removable and they're going to sit in there, and they'll be easily be able to take them off to see more detail under the vehicle. So these parts, these little bits, which are L4 in step 2, I'll put that up there, don't get glued in. They'll be held in there once the bottom's glued on. So I will go ahead and glue that on now, and then we can turn the page and have a look at what we got on step 3. Back in a sec. Okay, there it is, all clamped up. All I used was contactor, Revell, all the way around. I'll leave that for quite a while, just to make sure it's all secure, and then I might go around later with some liquid cement, using some the Icky Sticky one, just to go around, just to make sure it's all down good. But that's pretty much happy with the way that's clamping up. Put that aside. Up in the top corner there, we'll throw up step 3, and this is attaching the front bulkhead. So we got a few bits and pieces there to take off, most of them on the D sprue and looks like the H sprue. Yeah, a bit of detail work there, a bit of painting. It should look good. So I'll get those parts off and prepped, and we'll come back and have a look at them. Back in a sec. Right, so there's all our parts, all ready to go, all cleaned up, ready to paint. quite a few colors here. We've got everything from white to red to aluminium to black. So quite a bit, but it's all got to be primed. So what we'll do is, fortunately, there's a lot of tabs here where they slot into the part, so we can hold those with our clips. I say clips, I've got my little alligator clips here. So there's no problem holding on to some of these parts like this and spraying them. Other parts like this, for example, that tab there, which will sit in the bottom of the chassis like that, which won't be seen. So that's another point you can hold them at. Same with this one here, although the back of this can't be seen at all. So what I would do there, I think I've shown this to you before, is I grab a toothpick, just cut the end off like that, right, and then I'll put a bit of CA glue on there and then glue it into the back of there, and then that becomes something to hold it with to paint. And you can do that with some really tiny parts here. If you really needed to, you can actually use some fine wire like this, some really thin wire here, for tiny little parts like these little valves here, and attach them on there, and then that gives it something to hold. I find that easier than using blue tack or sticking it down onto your masking tape. Just makes it easy to spray the whole piece like this. Anyway, it's all good. I'm going to go and undercoat all these, then I'll paint them all. We've got another fire extinguisher, it looks like there, which will need a decal on it. And there's another piece on the front here. We'll also need a decal on there as well, a couple of decals. All right, so I'll come back when these parts are painted and we can start putting them on. Back in a sec. Okay, welcome back. So here we go. Everything's all painted up. We've got our decals on the fire extinguisher and that little panel there. I did a few little custom things. So these here, which I'm not sure what they are. I think they might be brake reservoirs for the front. I'm not sure, but they have little hose connections on there. Yet I can't see anywhere in instructions where there's actually any hose attached to them, which is a shame. So I'm going to look at attaching some hoses to that, or possibly some steel line running through. Whether I use this stuff here, but it may be too fine, or I do have some thicker one. We'll see. But for the moment, I'm just going to install them all for now and see how they look. I've gone right through the instructions. There's a lot of this, you know, all this sort of stuff added everywhere, the hosing and that, but I don't see anything for that. But in case there is, I'll leave it for now, and otherwise connect it up later. Other than that, this is all good. It's all going into the front area here and into the front bulkhead. As you can see in the instructions there, quite simple really, just a matter of, especially on this panel, most of the pieces are going to go on there. So I'll attach them all to this panel, pretty much go as far as putting them on, and we'll probably go through and watch this as a bit of a time lapse. Okay, all right, I'll be back shortly. Enjoy the time lapse and the music. Back in a minute. Okay, so there it is, all finished up. You can see what I mean by these attachments here. I'm going to probably add some lines to that later, maybe even down here as well. And same coming out from these, I'm guessing they're like for the brake fluid. Might be able to get some leads coming off those, but I'll deal with them later. But for now, that finishes all of step 3. Okay, so we're going to finish up, and we'll come back in the next video, and we'll continue on with step 4, which will include the suspension panel. It's quite a bit to that. I'll pop that up in the corner here, just have a quick look at. There's a lot of bits and pieces for the steering linkage is what that is. So we'll get working on that, but this has come up really well. I'm really happy with the result. Really happy. It's going to look really nice. So please, thank you all for watching. Please leave a comment below if you've got any questions or suggestions or tips or anything, or just to say thanks for showing it. And don't forget to hit that thumbs up button, and I guess I'll see you all in the next video. Okay, thanks all. Bye for now. Cheers.